Hi, I'm Joe.
I'm Rick.
And we're going to show you how to drive. Alright, welcome to our video about drives. There's a lot of different types of drives. I think there's a lot of guitarists out there that are a little confused on how they work. There's a big difference between overdrive, distortion, fuzz, and even boost. So here we have laid out for us a good classic example of what we like to show as a good example of the differences. A lot of folks, usually younger and uninitiated guitarists, will come in, say they need an overdrive. Plug in an overdrive, they hate how it sounds because they're thinking they're going to hear this wall of distortion, and they're greeted with the same thing but louder and a little bit dirtier. And then they'll usually end up needing a distortion, or a lot of times there is difference in what's a fuzz compared to an overdrive. Now there are some pedals out there I would say that do kind of blur the lines. The big one that comes to mind for me is the Proco Rat.
Right.
Very famous. Is it a distortion? Is it a fuzz?
Is it an OD?
Is it an overdrive? It really depends on how you set it. The Boss OS2 overdrive distortion literally spells it out that it's an overdrive or a distortion.
Yeah. Marshall
jackhammer. Really, it's a simulation of the JCM 800 and the JCM 2000, but they label the 800 overdrive and the 2000 distortion. So, big differences between these different pedals here is overdrive is a soft clip. Now, the great way I like to describe that is this is the push-up bra of the Ibanez. Sorry. If you're offended by that, I'm sorry.
Totally.
It is, but it's totally what it is. It's going to just embellish what's already there. Overdrives, you're just going to add a little. It's true. It takes what's already there and just makes it better.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit more grit. You've got a little bit more volume and some tone shaping. But for the most part, it's just going to add to what's already there and be a little more transparent.
Let's call it the ketchup.
No, it's the cat.
The ketchup.
The cat. He's so cute. Where things like distortion is a harder clip. It's a slightly harder clip, and it's also been named things like amp stack in a box. This is going to completely change the sound and the EQ of your amp and your signal.
Famous guitar player that used this?
All of them. I don't care who you are. This is a great pedal. It really is. Lots of famous guitarists have used these.
I'm thinking one in particular.
Who's that?
Didn't Kurt Cobain use those? Or was he?
I want to say he was actually the turbo distortion. I may be wrong on this. We'll have to Wikipedia do if Joe's right or not. But I think he actually. But the turbo distortion is not much different than this, to my ears. I'm sure there's some kind of difference. Otherwise, they'd just call it a DS1. But Joe Satriani has used this. Steve Vai has used this. Metallica has used this. If you like any of those bands, you can't hate on this pedal. Besides that, it's what you do with it. If it sucks, it's because you did something wrong. Anyway, so classic orange box. It's a distortion. This, when you say you're that guitarist who says you want an overdrive, but you hate how the overdrive sounds, this is probably what you're looking for, because this is going to completely alter the EQ, the gain, and it can also do the output level. Next in the line here is the fuzzes. The fuzzes are a harder clip.
They're very hard.
They're a much harsher clip. They're basically going to get you pushed into from, complete square wave. So just lopped off the top of your waveform, square. It's going to compress a little bit more. It's going to have a little bit of a chewier low end usually, but every fuzz is different. Some of them get really out there. If you need to hear that, you should check out some of our other videos that included things like the ZVEX fuzz. The broken pedal.
I love that pedal.
And then another alternative here is the boost pedal. Now, boost pedals were probably the original overdrive in a sense, because a lot of early 60s, 70s guys, they're using the Dallas Rangemaster treble booster.
That's where they say it came from, right? That's
Tony Iommi's the Sound of Black Sabbath is it's a Laney, I think whatever Laney it was, the super whatever, with a treble booster in front of it. But either way, this thing used properly can slam the front end with gain. This particular one we have here, which you'll be able to see, is the Spark Boost from t.c.Electronics. This thing's got more programmability than most boost players would honestly need. But the cool thing is that allows you to shape your tone to your pickups to different guitars, because you never know. You might play a Tele 1 minute and a multi-scale 7-string another minute. So, I guess the next thing we should do is hear how they sound.
Let's play
that. Sound going through our Dr. Z Ghia again here. Sounds good. So we're gonna just basically play a riff and a lead, and let you hear the differences in how they sound. So here's my riff clean. All right, now it's overdrive. So, take what's already there. We have
a little bit more.
We have the classic, just boosted setting. So levels cranked, drives kind of down, and tones about noon. I like to call that the Stevie Ray settings. That was the first place I heard it. Yeah. But a lot of bands use this for even metal context. Granted, they're using a heavily overdriven amp as well. Yeah. So if you have a clean signal and you're using the setting like this, you're wondering why you don't sound like Kill Switch Engage, because you need to actually put it in front of a already dirty amp, and then you'll go, oh, there's the sound.
Hey, there's my mids.
If you are a solid state guitarist, if you're the bedroom guitarist, you're playing clean, this may not be the sound for you, but you might want to see what the distortion is, because this is the classic distortion sound. This is completely changed the sound of my amp from clean to scream. So you've already heard the clean sound. So here's the DS1, and Odin's ears are sparked up. Hopefully we mic'd that right, and I can hear it sounds pretty good.
It actually sounds really good.
So, you know that nobody can get a good sound out of a DS1, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, you can't. That's so usable. Yeah.
It dialed right. I will preface by saying, the tone control is the secret here. Because you can literally dime this thing out, and I think still get a usable tone. Of course, you're gonna hear some hiss,
right? But that's.
But turn it back just a bit. That hiss goes away, and you still got a nice distortion.
Sounds really good.
It's not bad at all. And hey, since orange is our favorite color,
let's move on. Let's move on.
Our pumpkin patch. Now our fuzz. Again, this is a hard clip.
Not the fall.
Not the fall.
We're doing pumpkin anyway.
By the time this is edited,
it may be.
It may be the fall.
It could take me 3 months.
It's April now. So we'll see how
we'll be drinking our pumpkin spice lattes by the time this thing comes out.
Hey, I hear Oktoberfest is just around the corner. So, the fuzz.
Yes.
Now this is locked off, square wave, turn it up, yank the knob off kind of thing. So. Just the main difference I noticed between this and some of the fuzzes and overdrives and distortions I own is that it you kind of get a squishier bottom end. It's not as tight, especially just so you can hear the difference.
Yeah.
If you say you're doing some chugging, that's tight and very staccato. So if you're a staccato picker, if you're playing a lot of metal, while this sounds great for leads, rhythms, it's a little bit sludgier. But if you're into doom metal, dude, that's the way to go right there. You just Stoners love it. It's so awesome. I love this pedal. That's why I bought one.
OpAmp Big Muff.
Oh. So there's our fuzz, and then finally in the chain here we have a booster. We have this set to the fat setting, but we'll see how that sounds, and we'll go to the clean too. And again, this is just going to push it up. Every booster is a little bit different in the way that they're designed. I love the EP boost.
Yes,
it's a great pedal.
EP boost is good.
I have it at factory settings, and it's so powerful. I don't get it up above like 9.
Yeah,
it's barely on. So thanks for that pedal.
I'm trying to think what boost I have. I think
compressor.
That's right.
So again, since this one's going to be a little bit more subtle, there's our clean tone. So it definitely adds a little bit of gain.
Yeah, play that riff on that.
Yeah.
That sounds like.
So our riff.
So yeah.
So we'll set it to it. And now it's set to the clean boost. So. And just for posterity, this is now the mid boost. That'd be good for solo. And this is, these are pretty conservative settings too. There's more. You could turn these two up and get more bass and treble. You could turn the gain up and actually just for fun. With the gain cranked, this to me this sounds as good. And we're in AC/DC. I mean,
yeah, just a great classic overdrive sound.
So if you're really looking to push a tube amp, not bad at all. And again, it's all about context too. I would definitely preface by saying that overdrives and boosts, I think were great for tube amps, especially if you already like what's already going on in your amp and you don't want to change it, but you just, no guitarist has ever said, I just want a little, a little bit more. Yeah.
So Joe, you were talking about using pedals in conjunction with each other. So how would you use, let's say, the spark in a boost mode, right, with some of these other pedals?
Well, on my board, what I do is I combine mine in different ways, because on my board I have a compressor, an overdrive, a metal distortion, 2 fuzzes, and a boost. And I can use them in any kind of combination to get different sounds. I have kind of go-to sounds and kind of always-on kind of sounds, but anytime I'm playing or recording, I will hear things and go, well, that's not really doing it for me. Let me add this to this. Okay. So for me, my overdrive is actually set mostly like this. Very, very low gain, but when you pick hard, you can hear a little bit of breakup, and hot pickups definitely make a difference with the volume pretty much cranked. Because what I will do is, we'll use this as an example, is I will actually cascade the overdrive into my distortions or the overdriven tube amp or whatever. I've got a million different things, so I change all the time. So if I'm using the amp's overdrive or a distortion pedal, if I want to tighten up the sound, or if I'm feeling like the distortion pedal is not giving me as organic of a tone, I can often add in the overdrive. So this is just the distortion. And it's barely audible, but definitely adding that little bit more of a... I feel like it definitely adds to that cut when you're really playing quick. You can totally hear the difference there.
Cool.
So it definitely tightened up the sound, added a little bit more gain without it. And that's the thing. When you do an overdrive into a distortion, it gets the gain you want without sounding fizzy. which is
That
something
was true. Yeah, it was more saturated, but it wasn't like
it wasn't synthetic.
Hive wasp.
It didn't sound like a bunch of pedals chained together. It sounded more just like one good unified sound, which is, I think, a trick that a lot of people, I mean, it took me 20 years to figure out this trick, so don't feel bad if you never thought of it.
And correction, bees have hives, wasps have nests.
Because wasps get really offended when you don't know
No,
that.
they all have those cameras that they put on their doorknobs, right? The camera, I don't know.
Boost, I find, makes almost any pedal sound better, used right. This makes your delays sound better, makes your reverb sound better, but it can also add that solo boost to Fuzzes, to Distortions. Basically, I almost, depending on what amp I'm using, I almost leave my boost on all the time.
It's not just a clever name.
No, it's really not.
Spark is...
It's got a spark plug right on it.
There you go.
It's shooting out sparks.
Yeah.
But you can combine this with just about anything. Again, depending on what amp I'm using with my personal rig, especially if it's a solid state amp or a little combo, this thing stays on all the time, because that is the difference between that sounds like a crappy practice amp and, oh man, that's the amp you're playing with? That sounds great.
Right.
It really does make that difference, and I think this thing's, I would say this stands up to the EP, and really it's probably more versatile, and to get the different sounds, you don't have to open up the bottom of it either. So that's nice.
There are no little dip switches.
There's no dip switches that you have to unscrew the bottom plate to get to, but again, I've already set mine, and all I do is just adjust the volume when I accidentally kick it. And then usually, if we use this as an example on my EP boost, the level's about there, because it's just that powerful. But I think you can use that in conjunction with anything, and I don't think we've done that yet. So let's do it. Let's hear just our distortions. So let's try the fat. That's on the clean. Digging out the tone, so we're going to try this one on the mid set again. A lot of... Traditionally, I would probably use this more as like a lead sound anyway.
Yeah.
So if we did that, it would sound like... Which, to my ears, doesn't sound the greatest by itself, but the thing is, when you're thinking of, you need this in the context of a band, it's going to cut you through. Yeah. So
a little bit of volume and also some mids for sure.
So on a completely different topic, don't ever trust your ears soloed. When you're recording or when you're playing in a band, remember, it's all about the context, because you're going to be hearing drums, you're going to be hearing bass, and what sounds good by itself in your bedroom doesn't necessarily translate to the band, does not necessarily translate to the recording, because there's other instruments fighting for those same frequencies, and what sounds amazing by itself gets completely buried once everything else is there.
Exactly.
So, not making excuses for a tone, but that's just the way it is. What sounds great soloed doesn't necessarily sound good to something else. What sounds great in a mix might sound like complete crap by itself. It's just a matter of making sure that you're thinking about context.
Yes.
So, if you're looking to change your tone in any different way, there's different drive effects. So think about the context and what you're doing, what gear you already have, because your pickups, your amp, your other pedals, all that makes a difference. And you might be looking at the wrong one altogether. So think about that before you pick a drive pedal. If you can't decide, do what I did. Buy all. You get them. Just buy them all. Yes. They all sound awesome in a different way. But they're different uses. So remember, these are tools. You need different ones for different jobs, so keep that in mind when you're picking out your drive. I'm Joe.
I'm Rick.
Drive safely.